Alexis, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
About a Girl is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now in the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Thursday, absolutely loaded live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, right here, FS1. It is great to have you here today. 1 hour from now, Greg Cosell, NFL Meat Sandwich stops by. If you like to bet football, fantasy football, or just love the sport, Urban Meyer next hour, too. Joy Taylor is done. You do things to your hair. I don't even know how you do it. Seriously, I don't even know. I don't understand how you do it.
I always spring these on you too. I don't give you any warning. I just start giving you a text. Like,
I like this one.
It's going to be new today.
So what is this style?
This is just, we just want a little change up.
Oh,
My hair, as you guys all know, you're going on my natural journey with me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in that mid stage.
I think it's very glamorous looking.
Thank you.
I think it's very glamorous.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's start.
Let's do the show.
My wife always says, stay current. You ever gone to a resort and it had a legendary name and you book it and you get there and you're like, a hotel or a resort, and you're like, ugh. They didn't stay current. You ever go to a restaurant? You go to a town you haven't been in for a long time. Could be San Antonio, could be New Orleans, could be Minneapolis. Oh, that's a great steakhouse. You go there and you're like, oh, they didn't stay current. Especially now, everything's changing. Everything these days, everybody is much more mobile, and there's so many smart people out there. So we had this story yesterday. The Cowboys got flexed off of Sunday Night Football. First time since 2006. First of all, for Dak, because Jerry's really at his heart a businessman. Through all of his turmoil, still America's team. This ticks off Jerry Jones more than losing. This is great for Dak. Dak makes you relevant. Dak's a topic on Monday. Always. Even when you lose with Dak, they score a bunch of points. They don't flex you out with Dak. So this just guarantees Dak's the future, right? So I just want you to think about, I'm going to ask you a question, because I do believe, and it's one of the things my wife's really good at, stay current. Don't cling to things. Don't have a legacy based on yesteryear, okay? So Dallas hasn't been to an NFC championship game in 25 years. That was Troy Aikman, right? So 25 years. That's the longest drought in the NFC, except Detroit and Washington. So let me just ask you a question, and I want you to think about this. So the Cowboys they've won since 1995. 4 total playoff games, like wild card games. That's it. Carolina, in 25 years, has won 9. The Jags have won more. The Jets have won more. The Jets have been to 2 AFC championships. Crazy hot mess. Atlanta's won more. Okay. So let's do a process of elimination. Let me ask you this. So let's put together the franchises. We'll call it kind of the gold standard of the NFL, where we consider the elite franchises. They not only win, they win big games. They're mostly consistent. You just say them and you respect their front office. There's a consistency and excellence and intelligence. They don't overpay for players that often. I think you'd go Packers, Steelers, Ravens, Patriots, Seahawks, Saints. Denver's down now, but the Bolin family was I always called Denver the Steelers with a mountain range for a long time. They're just having a down stretch. The Eagles, the Giants, the Chiefs, and the Colts. These are really the elite franchises. Excellence, intelligence. They usually don't overpay. They've had downturns, but they bounce back. Then the second level would be respected. They don't have as many big wins. They've had longer droughts, but I'd say Niners, Vikings, Titans, Atlanta, Rams, and Carolina. Now, I know what you're saying. I mean, the Titans, really? All right, I want you to think about the Titans for a second. Let's just think about the Titans, because I know you're rolling your eyes at the Titans. The Titans have a Super Bowl appearance. Dallas doesn't. Beyond that, 2 other conference championships within 25 years. Dallas doesn't, and they have double the playoff wins. Okay, what about hot, crazy Atlanta? 25 years, 2 Super Bowls, 8 playoff wins. Hell, they've won 4 playoff games since 2012. This morning, the Cowboys are in last place. Since 2015, they were also in last place. So in the last 5 years, they have 1 playoff win and 2 last place finishes. You are, my friends, who you hang out with. The third category of NFL teams is what I would call the eye roll teams. Overpay, even like some of them playing well now. It's Dallas, it's Arizona, Jets, Cleveland, Chicago, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Tampa, Chargers, Houston, Cincinnati, Raiders, Dolphins. They turn wins into losses. Last 25 years, longer droughts, a lot of embarrassment, too much drama. They're just not winning big games. Just not winning big games. Kind of if they make the playoffs, it's one and done. Always have a new coach on the way. You never really think they get the coach right in most instances. It's kind of the eye roll. Dallas is there now. Last 25 years. Dallas has not stayed current. They overpay for running backs. They sign these long contracts to offensive linemen they now can't get out of, and they're old and injured. They spend way too much money on perimeter players sometimes, and not enough on, their defensive front. They take gambles in the draft that other really well-run teams don't. Sometimes they develop players. A lot of times, though, the Steelers... Packers do. The Cowboys don't develop their players. The Cowboys, on their Instagram, put a picture of themselves at 25. They were hunks. They're now 50. They're overweight. They're trying to fool everybody. This isn't a shot at Dallas. 25 years. You're the Lions. You're Washington with a bigger brand. You're the resort that people still think about, but you book a weekend there, you go with your wife, and you're like, man, the paint's peeling, the food's not very good. And you look out your window in Miami, and you're like, we should have stayed at that place. It's way more current. They got a better pool. It's where all the cool people are. It's not a shot at Dallas, but they're kind of in the eye roll. They're kind of in the eye roll club now. You kind of look at them and go, it's Cincinnati, it's Buffalo, it's Miami. And by the way, I think Buffalo and Miami, over the next 10 years, are going to move into the next level. I'm not going to give it to them now, but I think they're really close. But, last 25 years, Miami, you roll your eyes. You roll your eyes at the Jets. They got more playoff wins. All right. So the Big Ten, I like this. The Big Ten Football Conference, right smack dab in the middle of America. They have changed their rules. Good for them. And they're now allowing Ohio State to play in the Big Ten championship game. And the reason they did is they said, well, regardless of whether they played or not in the championship game, because their head-to-head victory over Indiana, win or lose against Michigan, they would have been in it, right? So they just said, let's just change the rules. So tip of the cap to the Big Ten. But I said this yesterday. This idea of fairness in college sports just cracks me up. There are teams that simply matter more. So Fox and ESPN spend about a month before the season. You don't see this. It's one of the coolest things that happens in sports that nobody sees or talks about. They have a draft, and they draft games and dates. And number one on the draft board every year for Fox and ESPN is the Ohio State-Michigan game. The second game is usually Ohio State-Penn State. The third game is usually Ohio State versus a big out-of-conference Texas, Oklahoma, whoever they play. The fourth game is Ohio State and Michigan State. The fifth game is Ohio State and Wisconsin. Then you get into Michigan, Penn State. In most years, the first 4 or 5 or 5 of the first 6 games are Buckeye games. That's what the networks want. The networks are telling you they're just more important. Listen, I've lived out west forever. USC is the rival, the number 1 rival for about 7 to 8 of the Pac-12 teams. When they're down, the conference is down. Actually, right now, the Pac-12's got a lot of schools. Arizona State's got the right coach. So does Stanford. So does Utah. So does Oregon. They're all doing well. But USC is down, so everybody thinks the Pac-10 is down. When Pete Carroll was at the Pac-12 and dominating it, it's the worst the conference has ever been. Stanford was awful. Oregon was awful. Washington was awful. UCLA had the wrong coach. You need USC for the Pac-12 to be relevant. If USC now was in the Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson class, you'd all be going, those West Coast football teams. Actually, the conference has some decent teams. USC, though, is not a national player anymore. As of today. It's the same thing with Ohio State. This idea of purity and fairness in college football is absolute nonsense. Networks, remember, college football is all about recruiting. Networks, the big ones like this one, put the big dogs like Ohio State and Bama and Oklahoma and Clemson and Notre Dame, they put them on TV every week. They fight for their games. Humongous recruiting and marketing advantage. Schools don't all have the same money. Ohio State's loaded. Alabama's loaded. Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas, they're loaded. They have juice bars and smoothie bars and facilities and slides and pools and trainers and other schools can't have. You got to get over fairness in college sports and specifically college football. Also, let's be honest. Wouldn't you want Ohio State representing the conference if they have to play a Clemson or a Bama? The last time non-Ohio State from the Big Ten got to the playoff, I think it was like Michigan State, and they got beat 38-0. They humiliated the conference against Alabama. You don't want that. So this is the right move by the Big Ten. Certain people, certain businesses, certain franchises mean more, matter more, and it's not fair anyway. Get over the fairness thing. Just get over that. It's not fair. Some schools have bigger budgets. They're surrounded by better high school programs. They've got better topography, better geography. They're prettier. They're less rural. They have more heritage. They have more history. Ohio State's one of them. Get them in. This is who you want representing your conference. Nothing against the Hoosiers. Nothing against Northwestern. Nothing against Sparty. It's nothing against the Badgers. But if you're going to play in a championship game and you have to bend the rules, bend it for the Buckeyes. That's my new motto for the Big Ten. Bend it for the Buckeyes. Just bend the rules. Bend them for the Buckeyes. I'd be honest with you, really people are starting to really love me in Ohio. I will accept Grand Marshal invitations for random summer parades. Coming up next, there's always been a gap, but the gap is now even greater for LeBron James. I cannot believe what I saw this morning. That's coming up next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and The Cast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey there, it's Leanne Rhymes. These days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Geico! Get a quote to see how much you could save. Geico makes it easy. Bundle your home and car insurance. I bet our parents couldn't do that. Could they do that back then? These new insurance companies, they could, it used to be one way to get a mortgage. It was like a 30-year mortgage. That was it. And now there's like 74 ways to get a mortgage. Anyway, this is Colin's Financial Help. Thanks for joining us. I'll have Albert Breer around the corner. So I saw this. So, ESPN ranks top 10 players in the NBA. So, do we have a list of top 10? So they have LeBron 1 for our radio audience. Anthony Davis 2, Giannis 3, Luka Doncic, terrific young player 4, Kawhi Leonard 5, that feels a little low to me. Kevin Durant 6, off an injury, Damian Lillard 7, 8 for Steph Curry, 9 is James Harden, and 10 Jokic for Denver. So, I just want you to think about this. We know LeBron's the best player. The gap is now widening. LeBron is in his 18th year. Michael Jordan played 15 years, then quit. LeBron's in his 18th year and is still the best, and I think the gap is widening. So let's look at this list. Now. So the number 2 guy, put it up again. The number 2 guy, Anthony Davis, could not win a playoff series of note without LeBron. The number 3 guy has struggled in the playoffs. The number 4 guy is a defensive liability, made his first playoffs, Luka, and one and done. And then you've got bad chemistry guy, Kawhi, always hurt Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, 6 and 8 are always hurt. Damian Lillard, who I love, had a losing record. James Harden's a weirdo, and Jokic is not close to LeBron. This list is a list of can't win in the playoffs, bad for team chemistry, odd for personality, can't stay healthy, and LeBron. That's the list. That is the. I would make an argument. Luka, with about a year, could be 2. But folks, that list is a health list, a chemistry problem list, kind of an odd personality list, a bad playoff history list, and LeBron. And I know, Michael Jordan played college basketball. You can't say he was done at 15 years and LeBron 18. Yeah, those daunting college basketball years where Michael played against college stiffs 35 games a year. Like, Michael at the end was not as vertical a player. LeBron, going into year 18, the second best player on this league now is Anthony Davis. And I think most of you would argue that point. You're arguing too. He was invisible in New Orleans. But with LeBron, I just wrote it down. Health, A. Leadership, A. Maturity, A. Clutch, A. Experience, A. Works well with others, A. I mean, the gap is just gigantic. And I like the other players. I think Kawhi's a little low. I'd have Kawhi in my top 3. Get a basket, get a stop. He's got a quirky personality. That part I'm not going to deny. But get a basket, get a stop. I think Kawhi's in my top 3. I take Kawhi over Luka today, just because I think he's a significantly better defender, and I think he's been in big spots and won championships in games 5, 6, and 7. In the finals, and I think there's incredible value to that. But wow, you start looking at that list, it is a lot of wow, and a lot of holes, and a lot of issues. Except LeBron. Joy with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, Carson Wentz will be watching from the sidelines this weekend as Jalen Hurts gets his first NFL start on Sunday.
Odd.
Well, it's 2020, so anything's on the board. And Eagles teammates Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey are standing up for Wentz and showing their support.
He's my best friend. He's my guy. has had his back since day one, and it sucks for a guy like Carson to be put in that position because, like I said, it's never just come down to just one guy. It's 11 guys on the field.
Yeah, the moment he came in his rookie year, I thought that he transformed our offense. And that's not just him as a player now. That's him as a person. That's him as the intelligence he brings, the athleticism he brings, the competitiveness he brings. Made a tangible difference in practice every day and on game day.
Both of them said that the decision to move from Wentz to Hurts would not lead to a divided locker room.
Well,
but
I would say this. I think it's really cool that two great players defended Carson Wentz. Now it falls on Doug Peterson to make sure the locker room is not divided. But I will say this, and I think you would agree with me, if they win, it will not be divided. Now the question is, if they beat the Saints this week, I don't think they would. But it's the NFL. We just saw the Giants go to Seattle with Colt McCoy and win. We've seen the Chiefs lose at home to the Raiders. If the Eagles played great and won, I think you just come to terms with, okay, we'll say Monday? The Eagles can win this division. And I think winning solves almost everything in this league.
Winning will solve everything, but I don't think they're going to win. And you can't fool players. I don't really think that's a good sign that they came out so strongly in support of Wentz.
It makes them interesting.
They're the ones that see the practices. They're the ones that know this locker room.
Right.
Those two are leaders on the team and just came out very strongly defending Wentz, saying it's not all his fault. And it's not all his fault.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what is Doug Peterson supposed to do?
Well, listen, Trubisky got benched, and then he's got his job back. So, even though I think Philadelphia has done him a disservice with the statue and the drafting Jalen Hurts, people have lost their jobs and come back. It's not, Mitch Trubisky's come back. Some things in life aren't fair, but they're your reality. So you're going to have to sit on the bench?
Nothing in life is fair, and you're in a very competitive industry.
Yeah.
So I'm on the other side with the drafting Jalen Hurts and the statue. But at the end of the day, you have to go out there and perform, and he's not.
Right.
But hearing this from Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey is not a good thing to me, because I do think they're going to lose. And then what happens? Now they're saying it's not going to lead to a divided locker room, but what if they lose 2 in a row? And it's not necessarily in bad fashion. They just lose because they're not as good as the Saints, which they're not.
This is why you get paid a lot to coach. Billy Martin, the great ex-Yankee manager, used to say, 25 players in the locker room, 10 love me, 10 hate me. My job is to keep the 5 who are undecided away from the guys who hate me.
That makes sense. So the Rams will face the Patriots tonight. For the first time since their Super Bowl matchup. We have NFL football every day now. That's the new thing.
This is going to be low scoring, I think. Very interesting matchup.
So in that 13-3 loss, the typically explosive Rams offense tied for the fewest points ever in a Super Bowl. It's also the fewest points that the Rams have ever scored under Sean McVay, who called the Super Bowl loss a very humbling night. Jared Goff doesn't look back fondly on that day either. He said there were not very many good memories of that game. Basically, unless you were a Patriots fan, no one has good memories of that Super Bowl.
Well,
it was an awful watch.
It was the dullest Super Bowl of my life.
It was an awful watch for everyone except for Patriots fans. and actually, I don't know. I think that most Patriots fans would admit that it wasn't a great watch until the end when they won.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. It wasn't enjoyable. But I'm very interested in this game tonight. They're both coming off of really big wins. Obviously, the Patriots a bigger win than the Rams, but that was still a very significant win over the Cardinals.
If New England's Fox bets is a 5-point dog, it makes no sense. They stayed in LA. They're on the road. They don't.
Well, I think that's playing a part in it too, because it is a road game, but you don't have the fans in the stands, so you don't have that element. And they didn't go home after the Chargers game. So they didn't have the travel across the country. They've kind of had some time to chill and relax. It's actually nice and warm here in LA right now, as opposed to New England, where there's it's winter. So I do think that's playing a role in it as well. This is going to be a really good game tonight, and a lot of emotions. Although it's a very different. Both teams are very different, obviously.
I'm so excited to watch it. I'm so into this game.
It's going to be a good one. So Giannis has until December 21st to sign his Supermax extension with the Bucks, but that's less than 2 weeks away, and he still hasn't made a decision. He said he's not focusing on new deal right now, and said he's letting his agent handle those discussions and working on himself and getting ready for the start of the season. They did do a lot, did the Bucks, this offseason. They traded for Drew Holiday, sent Eric Bledsoe to the Pelicans, on George Hill to the Thunder. They lost Robin Lopez and Wesley Matthews in free agencies. They re-signed Pat Connaughton. I don't know. I honestly think he's going to end up staying. You know what? I feel like at this point we're hearing more about how upset he is.
If I was Giannis, I would go to Miami. But I think it's better for the NBA that he stays in Milwaukee, and I think he will. So I'm 75% stays in Milwaukee. I think it's better for the league if you have one of these small towns, unglamorous cities. Because I believe NBA, like college sports, is about recruiting. High school players are free agents. And I think Pat Riley has a history of unbelievable drafting, international and domestic, unbelievable ability to sell Miami and sell the franchise. So for me, Giannis, I go with Jimmy Butler, no state tax, aqua water in a winter league, and I'm always going to have a Tyler Hero being drafted. I think it's a no-brainer if I'm Giannis. But I do think it's better for the league if Milwaukee's got a top 5 player in the league.
I don't know what Miami's money situation is now because of the Bam contract. So Giannis would have to, he wouldn't be signing a supermax, so he'd be taking less money anyway.
Well, you're going to save that taxes alone.
Yeah, and at that point, you're going to make that in other contracts outside of basketball anyway. I'm with you. It's better for the NBA overall if he's there. I don't think he'll ever win a championship in Milwaukee, and I think that's because he clearly needs another star. Great player, another star by his side.
Here's another reason I always take less in the NBA, because in football, injuries, boom, your career's over. Baseball, I'm a pitcher, arm falls off. In basketball, you can if you take care of yourself, you can play for 15 years. This money, it's a money train that keeps going. I don't know what the average NFL career is. It's probably 4. I don't know what the average baseball career is. It's probably 5. But for NBA stars, these careers don't end. You can just keep playing. So
no one even talks about LeBron retiring.
It's not even it's like, and Michael basically was so intense, he wore himself out.
Right.
He retired. He could have kept playing. He was still scoring 18, 20 a game. He could have played for another 5 years.
I just also think that this isn't going to Miami is not Giannis's personality. Because if he goes to Miami, that's pressure. Because now you've made a decision to go to an organization that people love to hate anyway. Yeah. You got Pat Riley there. They were in the finals last year. You lost to them. So, there's an added pressure if he goes there, which he may just not want.
Joy Taylor, fantastic new haircut. In the Herdline News.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herdline News.
So Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, is now joining us live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing. All right, so I saw a story this week on Jim Harbaugh, and we always know there's about 6-7 coaches that get replaced every year. There's always about 6 teams that need a new quarterback and about 6 teams that need a new coach. So you hear Jim Harbaugh. It felt like to me, Albert, it was a little like he was getting some pushback in Michigan, and he thought, I'm going to have my agent spread the news that I'm pretty popular still in the NFL. That's what it felt like to me. But do you think there's a team? Do you buy the reports?
Yeah, I think he's going to have a decision to make. My guess would be that Michigan's going to put something in front of him over the next couple of weeks, and my understanding is, I think he's probably already got a pretty good idea of what the NFL landscape looks like for him. So, I think that's really going to be what it comes down to, is that, he'll have to decide, do I take my swing at the NFL and wait on signing an extension on Michigan, or do I go forward with Michigan? And I don't have insight into what decision he's going to make when it comes to that, but I do think it's something that he'd mull. And there are 2 teams in the NFL I'd keep my eye on. Number 1 would be the Jets, just because Woody Johnson, who will be coming back from the UK, has had a fixation with Jim Harbaugh. This goes back over a decade. He's checked in with him over the years. It wouldn't surprise me if Woody Johnson comes back from the UK and all of a sudden tries to make a run at Jim Harbaugh. The second team, and this is one that I think would be, I just think sort of fits what Jim Harbaugh has to sell at the NFL level, would be the Chicago Bears.
Wow.
And I think if you look at Harbaugh, now here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, why would you hire the guy coming from what's happened in Michigan? Here's the thing. He's Bill Parcells. He comes in, he shakes your program up, he'll get immediate results, and then you know what? 3 or 4 years down the line, maybe he's worn everybody out and he's gone. It's what happened at Stanford. It's what happened at San Francisco. It's what could happen at Michigan. So I think if there's a team that's perfect for him, it's got to be a team that needs to win right now. Look at the Bears, Colin. What do they have? They've got a great defense that maybe has one or two runs left in it with Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson, Fuller, Trevathan, that whole group. And so if you're the Bears right now, you're probably not worried about 5 years from now. You're probably looking and saying, can we get one more great run out of this defense? And I think Jim Harbaugh has shown that he's capable in that sort of scenario.
Boy, that is interesting. That is really, really interesting.
He
Speaking
played for them too, of course, as you know.
Yeah. Let me throw this out. We talk about Carson Wentz. You can't get rid of Carson Wentz for a couple of years. You could get rid of Doug Peterson. Is he in trouble, the head coach in Philly?
I think everybody's under evaluation in Philly. My understanding is the owner's not happy, and I can't say exactly what level the changes are going to come at, but I think everybody's going to get a hard look, and that's top to bottom, scouting, coaching, the whole thing. Now, maybe it just means there are more changes in the offensive staff. That's happened twice now, since they won that Super Bowl, so it's possible it's just that. But I do think that everybody in football operations is going to be under some level of scrutiny when we get to January. And then I think the decision on Wentz is going to kind of be built out from that. And I tell you what, Colin, a lot of people think his contract's not tradable. It is. Like, I look at his contract. I mean, it's less than $100 million over the next 4 years.
Yeah.
So if you're another team, I think the way you look at that is he's got one guaranteed year left. That's at $25 million, right? So you're basically bringing him in at the rate that the Colts brought in Phillip Rivers at last year. If it doesn't work out, you spend $25 million. That sucks, right? If it does work out, you have him at a discount rate for the 3 years after that.
Yeah.
So I think the Eagles would be able to find a suitor, maybe with Frank Reich in Indianapolis.
Yep.
If they can't find, the issue there is managing the dead cap money on the other end, right? Like where the Eagles would have to swallow a bunch of dead cap to make the deal. But here's the thing about that, right? If you're pulling the plug on Carson Wentz, aren't you going through a complete rebuild anyway?
Yeah.
Like with the age of that roster and everything else, I think at that point you're just going to say, you know what, we got to blow the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So I think so much of where the Eagles go from here is going to be determined by whoever's in charge making that decision. Is Carson Wentz fixable?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. The contract for Wentz is not bad. The Colts right now are paying Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers $46 million, and you get twice the athlete with Carson Wentz. Now, let's go to this. Buys work differently for different teams. So when I look at Tampa Bay getting a bye, I think to myself, Tom Brady is about the most intense guy in the league. It's a perfect time. So you feel like a playoff team with inconsistency. I mean, I watched the Cowboys take a bye and go from unwatchable to almost beating the Steelers, beating the Vikings, and at least being competitive against Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, you can attack buys a different way. Give everybody rest or really go all in on fixing our issues. Your thoughts about what this buy does for Brady and Arians and where that relationship, Albert, stands today?
A great chance to reset for everybody, I think. When I talked to Bruce Arians and other people in the Bucs organization about this, in the spring and summer, really the idea was we're not going to change the system for Brady because Brady is such a proficient learner that he'll be able to pick up whatever we throw at him. And the best thing for the other 10 guys in the huddle is to keep the status quo. And then have Brady make it work. Well, I think what we've seen since is that the system doesn't really fit Brady that well,
right,
and that they've had to make some adjustments on the fly. And if you look at the history of older quarterbacks in this spot, right, Brett Favre, when he went to Minnesota, had that great year. Darrell Bevell was his offensive coordinator. He had background with him from Green Bay. And then look at Peyton Manning in Denver, right? They had designs on melding Mike McCoy, Adam Gase's system with what Peyton Manning did in Indianapolis. About halfway through that first year, they decided, you know what, the hell with this. Let's just do what Peyton Manning's good at. And they wound up getting an MVP out of him the next year. And so I think that that's sort of the point that the Bucs and Tom Brady are at right now, where they've tried it. I mean, they tried to make it work, but I still think that if you kind of make the offense a little deeper, like mentally, you kind of like increase your library offensively, and you do a little bit more of what Tom Brady can do. If you can make it work for the other players, I think you're going to get the most out of them. So I look back at the history of the Vikings with Favre, the Broncos with Manning, and I have to think that they used this week to at least move a little bit closer to what Tom Brady's been comfortable with over the last 20 years. And if that's what they did, then they could be better off for it going into December.
Couple of minutes left. You know the Patriots as well as anybody who covers this league. They are 2 plays from 8-4. Whereas they were wildly inconsistent in the first 7 to 8 weeks, they've become a little more consistent in recent weeks. They could have easily beaten Buffalo. If they beat tonight the Rams, it is going to be frightening for the rest of the league that they are winning with no passing game and no playmakers and no great pass rusher. I guess I'd ask you now, it still creates a dilemma. What in the world are they doing at quarterback? Garoppolo, Cam, draft? This can't be the model for the next 4 years.
I'm putting them in the bucket with the Niners and the Raiders. And what I mean by that is I think both the Niners and Raiders are okay with where they're at with their starting quarterback right now, but have their eyes open for an upgrade if it comes along. And so would the Patriots be okay with bringing back Cam Newton for another year? I think they would be. And the main reason why is because I think they've had a hard time getting a full evaluation on Cam based on what's around him. And I think they've come to the realization over the last couple of months that it's just not good enough. And it's not an 11-game sample size. Go back. I wrote about this week, Colin. Go back and look at the last 9 games of last year. Brady was 4-5 in those games, and his numbers were almost identical to the numbers that Cam's putting up now. Cam's passer rating through 11 games is 80. Brady's passer rating in the last 9 games of last year was 78. And so I think there's an acknowledgement in the building right now that what they've put around the quarterback, regardless of who the quarterback is, isn't good enough, and they're going to take that into account when they make the decision on Cam Newton after the year. So if there's an upgrade, I think they would go for it. Like if Matt Stafford or Jimmy Garoppolo or somebody like that's available, I think that they would jump if they saw somebody as an upgrade. But I don't think they're as out on Cam Newton as people might think. I think they see him as a player that might be okay as sort of the bridge quarterback to get them to whoever the next one is.
That was really good reporting. That is fascinating. That Cam's 11 games and Brady's last 9. That is really
20 game sample size.
See, that's why we bring on the show. See that right there. So we all got smarter. Albert Breer, Monday Morning Quarterback. Good talking to you, buddy.
All right, thanks, Colin.
You know, I will say this. That's fascinating. The one thing I will say about New England, we were talking about this as a staff this morning. The one area they have drafted well, and they continue to, is the offensive line. What's the kid, Michael Onwenu, the offensive lineman they draft? Onwenu is great. He's been a huge hit. Joe Tooney's still great. Shaq Mason's still great. Their center's still great. So Damian Harris, the running back's been proficient. So that's interesting. The other thing is they're acknowledging what we've been on for about 5 years is you got no playmakers. It's the slowest roster in the league. This is why Brady left, and this is why Cam is throwing for 69 yards.
And that's where they don't draft well.
Poorly at best. That's where you have to just say, okay, we're a company, we do one thing really poorly. Let's fix that. Bring somebody from the outside in because the people in the building aren't good at it. So let's go out of the building, bring somebody in that does it. Go to the Steelers and figure out the scout who drafts wide receivers. Coming up next, Brett Favre did it again. I said I wasn't going to comment on Brett Favre's comments. He made a comment. I have to comment on a Brett Favre comment. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Eleanor Wells, host of the new podcast about a girl, and I want to tell you some stories. David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Paul McCartney, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison. You probably know these names, but this is not really about them. This is about the women behind the legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. Women like Angie Bowie, Mary Austin, Jane Asher, Rita Marley, and Pam Carson. Each episode, I'll give voice to one of these women who have remained muted in the shadows for far too long. They're incredible, influential women without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. About a Girl is executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, The 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flamin' Road. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines.
The infighting within the LGBT community is ridiculous. Baby, let me tell you about that rainbow in the front. Check the back up. potholes, thunderstorms, gunshots, all that.
Keeping you politically informed.
Because that's what we do. We wait till the presidency, but we don't think about all the steps that it takes to get to the presidency, which is congressmen and senators and judges and people put in place to think like us, look like us.
Mixed in with a little pop culture.
They ain't went to no Ice Cube. Understand, Ice Cube ain't even got that much juice. He ain't got that much power. This ain't Bad Boys in the Hood. He ain't Dope Boy.
You never know what you're gonna hear.
Don't I look like Beyonce Mama? Don't I look like Beyonce Mama?
Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
New streaming service coming. It's called Discovery Plus. A lot of brands, Food Network, HDTV, they have their exclusive originals too. It starts next year. U.S. only, Discovery Plus. So, Brett Favre makes comments, and I always cringe. Because not all great players are great analysts, right? Some are, but there's been a lot more failed analysts than great analysts. You know, Tony Romo kind of shocked us how good he was. Aikman's great. Collinsworth is great. But would you have known, like, when they broke into the league, oh, those will be the best analysts. Bradshaw's obviously, Howie Long. There's been a lot of guys that aren't very good. Because they play the game, they don't know the game, and they don't think the game. Brett Favre says a lot of stuff that's nonsense. But what he said yesterday on his Sirius show, it doesn't have to be right, but I was very happy. I like this, what is happening now with Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Here you go.
I think he, aside from the Super Bowls, he may be the greatest player ever. I say this all the time. Tom Brady is the greatest player ever if we're measuring from a Super Bowl and statistically. Thomas put up tremendous statistics and has won 6 Super Bowls. But Aaron is, believe me, the Packers are good year in and year out because of him. And his statistics certainly speak for themselves.
All right, so let me start with this. Aaron is the MVP of the league, not just this year, but there's no question. It's a franchise that doesn't have an owner and can't get free agents. It's the smallest market of any pro team. Aaron is the most valuable player in this league, like LeBron's been for the last 15 years every year. Aaron's the most valuable player in this league. The Chiefs have gone to a lot of playoff games without Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid's won a lot of games with a lot of quarterbacks. The Chiefs aren't as good without Patrick, but the Chiefs would be viable with this roster without Patrick Mahomes. They'd be viable. They were viable, and the roster was less talented than this. Green Bay's a mess without Aaron Rodgers. So he is the most valuable guy in the league. And I love his response to this because he is so tickled by it, you can't wipe the smile off Aaron's face.
I love Favre. He's such an interesting, unique guy as well. He shoots from the hip, so. He kind of says what's on his mind all the time. It's fun to be back in touch with him and to have that friendship and that kinship. And I appreciate anything that he says.
You can't wipe the smile off his face. So, first of all, I've said for years, I'm more of an Aaron guy than a Favre guy. I like the way he intellectually approaches the game. But, it's really funny. If they were actors, Favre is John Wayne. Iconic. They name airports after John Wayne. I love Don Cheadle. They don't name airports after him. Iconic, gunslinger, tough guy, hero, successful. Details, sometimes not the greatest actor. But he just sold personality. John Wayne was, as a kid, was just bigger than the screen. Aaron Rodgers is Christian Bale. A little prickly, a little aloof, doesn't get along with everybody, but critically acclaimed, and damn can that guy act. And I love the fact that they're close now. Because this makes me genuinely happy. And I've always been more of an Aaron guy. Even, you don't think that. I think I like the way Aaron approaches the position. And I like Bale more than John Wayne. But there's value in both. If they start naming airports after you, there's value in both. And I love the fact that Brett said it, and you can't take the smile off Aaron Rodgers' face. Greg Cosell, next, hour 2.
I'm Kate Berlant. I'm Jacqueline Novak. We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world. That's why we made a podcast, Poog, with the Big Money Players Network and iHeartRadio. Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal. For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion. This is our hobby. This is our hell. This is our naked desire for free products. This is Poog. That's Poog. Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You probably heard a lot about Portland on the news, about the tear gas and the federal agents with snatch vans and the anarchy. What you probably haven't heard is the truth, because the reality of what happened in Portland is so much stranger, so much more incredible than what the mainstream media was willing to show. I'm Robert Evans, and along with all of the other voices on my podcast, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, I was there. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com. Or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. Hour 2 live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, FS1. And I'm not going to get into something because the audience doesn't care, and I really don't care. There's a rumor going around. There's a bunch of stuff on the internet. Some of it may be true, some of it's absolutely not true. I'm not going to get into it, and that's all I'm saying.
I don't think that helps.
What? Well, one of them's not true, and one of them could be. There's a lot. Listen, you just have to. I am somebody that keeps the focus on the ball. Joy Taylor, that's what I do. Focus on the ball.
Keep your head in the game, Colin.
You know, I am so into, and not just because it's at Fox, I am so into tonight's game. Belichick humiliated Sean McVay.
Yep.
The Patriots are bizarrely successful this year. The Rams should win this game. In fact, this morning, I thought about this. If you put the top 10 players in this game, and this is not just Pro Football Focus, but it's Pro Football Focus grading, and who I believe are the 10 best players in this game at their position. Aaron Donald's number 1, Jalen Ramsey number 2. So those are the top 2 players. Best defensive lineman in the league, first or second best corner. Stephon Gilmore not having a great year, but I'd still respectfully put him 3. It's hard for me to separate Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. They're both excellent. I think Kupp's got more catches. Michael and Nwenu, the rookie offensive lineman, has been a huge, shocking surprise for New England. Then I put the John Johnson, the third, the safety for the Rams, Darius Williams, the corner, right tackle Rob Havenstein. He and Shaq Mason are a coin flip. Most of their best players in New England are offensive line. But if you went to like wide receiver and the tight end groups, New England doesn't have a single wide receiver who could get on the field on the Rams wide receiver group. They don't have a single tight end. So in terms of running backs, Damian Harris is the only one I'd give any carries to. So in terms of wide receiver, running back, tight end, and the skill positions mean more than ever in the NFL, I would absolutely say slam. Damian Harris, running back for New England, is the only player that could get into the rotation for the Rams, and Goff right now is a better quarterback than Cam, I believe. So if New England wins tonight, it's frightening. It is. New England doesn't throw the ball. Doesn't have an elite pass rusher. Chase Winovich has 3.5 sacks. Does not have a single go-to dependable wide receiver.
And the Rams' defense is incredible.
Incredible. The secondary's, it's incredible. If they win tonight. going to disband, start over without Belichick because we can't compete. Greg Cosell joining me now live. He does every Thursday. If you bet football, it's fantasy football. You just love football. Greg Cosell joining me live. 41 years NFL films. So when I watch the Rams, and I've seen every snap because I live in Los Angeles, I've seen every snap. They're talked about a lot here in town. They always look kind of the same. It feels like a lot of motion, a lot of sets. They move Goff all over the pocket. I feel like I see the same 12 plays over and over. But when you look at film, are they the same team we saw a couple years ago in the Super Bowl?
In terms of what you said, in terms of sets and those kinds of things, yes, to a large degree. But I think the difference is this: when they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, Colin, the foundation of what they did was the run game and Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was still great at that point, and Belichick structured his game plan, particularly his defensive front, to stop the outside zone run game and stop Gurley. The Rams are a little different offensively now. They throw the ball far more by choice. The foundation of their offense is not the run game. Do they want to run it? Of course they do. But it's not the foundation. And what they do a lot more of, which they did not do 2 years ago, is empty sets. They put Goff in empty sets. They spread the formation. The only other quarterback who's been in empty more than Jared Goff this year is Ben Roethlisberger. So they're a different offense than what they were when Belichick pretty much shut them down without an offensive touchdown in that Super Bowl. So we'll see. My guess is Belichick's approach will not be the same as it was in that Super Bowl.
Speaking of the Rams, the Giants were, I think, like 1-7, and Giants lost to the Rams. And I watched that game at SoFi, and I sat there, and I remember I came in the following Monday on the air, and I said, when one of the shows that week, and I'm like, boy, Giants, for a team with a bad record, they gave the Rams real physical issues. And I had somebody on, Mark Schlereth, recently said, a couple of these Belichick guys, Joe Judge and Brian Flores, they're confusing quarterbacks. They are confused, just like Belichick does. What do you see with the Giants that you like? Because they lead their division, and they have played for 6 weeks. They're a real football team.
Well, and you failed to mention Patrick Graham, who's the DC for the Giants, and he also has a Belichick pedigree. And what they do is they're so multiple with their fronts, and that's a Belichick thing, being very multiple with your fronts, not as multiple with your coverages, a little more coverage consistency, but they're very, very aggressive up front. A lot of pre-snap movement, a lot of what we call amoeba fronts, where there's no defender with his hand in the ground, or maybe one defender with his hand in the ground. That makes it very difficult for the offensive line to identify 5 players that the offensive linemen are going to block. They don't really blitz a ton, and they don't play a lot of man coverage, but they're really difficult up front, and they're physical. They're really physical and competitive, and on defense, obviously, that matters. So they do a lot of good things tactically, and they really caused problems for Seattle last week.
A team that we said this when they were 2-7 and 3-7, the Giants or Miami, is that they're better than their record. They were bad for September and most of October, but this is a real football team with a bad record. And we said that when the Giants were bad. Miami last year started out like 0-8.
Right.
But every week they got better. So Miami's going to play Kansas City and Mahomes. They've given every quarterback issues. What can they do against Mahomes?
And that is going to be fascinating to see what they do against the Chiefs, because Miami has played a lot of man coverage. They like to blitz, but keep in mind, Brian Flores was also on the staff in New England when they beat the Chiefs, and I remember a game in which they literally doubled Tyreek Hill on every single play. My guess is they might feel very comfortable with Eric Rowe, who's a big, physical, kind of hybrid corner safety. He's their tight end matchup. They could feel comfortable with him matched man-to-man on Kelsey, and then take their chances with Hardman, Robinson. But we've seen what Bill Belichick has done. Flores was on that staff. So we'll see. This to me is one of the most fascinating unit matchups of the weekend, because the Chiefs bring so much firepower on the outside, and Kelsey is having an unbelievable year. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the best third-down quarterback in the league. The Dolphins have far and away the best third-down defense in the league. So there's so many dimensions. significance and elements to this game on that side of the ball.
Taysom Hill. People compared him to Tebow, and my takeaway, he's a better athlete and a better thrower, but I never really viewed him as a franchise quarterback long term. He throws it a lot better than I thought. How do you view him today, opposed to a month ago?
Well, let's keep one thing in mind, Colin. Only one team this year gets a bye, correct? That's the way the playoffs are.
Yeah.
So he's not playing. This is not an audition. He's playing because Sean Payton believes he's the best quarterback on that team after Drew Brees. That's why he's playing. And last week against Atlanta, the second time they played them in 3 weeks, Sean Payton gave Taysom Hill more in terms of the route concepts, in terms of what they asked him to do in the passing game, and he threw the ball well. Now, it's 3 starts, so no one should make a judgment about his whole career, Colin, but certainly they're expanding him a little bit, and we'll see what happens this week against the Eagles. But I thought Taysom Hill threw the ball well last week, and in fact, one of the touchdowns he threw, the one to Jared Cook, was the exact same play, formation, play design, play concept, as Drew Brees hitting Jared Cook for a touchdown week 8 against the Bears.
Wow. So I never want to overreact to Monday Night Football. It's the standalone game usually. Wasn't this week, but there's a history where people just overreact to Monday. It was hard to watch Josh Allen and not go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was as good a performance by any quarterback in any game I'd seen this year. That's what my eyes told me. What did the film say?
And I would agree with that. And there's you know what the reason is? We know he's got a big arm. We know he can move around. So what's the reason, Colin? Ball placement. Always the thing that people spoke about with Josh that concerned people ever since he came out of Wyoming. You and I believe, talked about it when he was coming out of Wyoming. And that was the issue.
Yep.
And his ball placement now, this year in particular, has been pretty much every week. I think one exception, but pretty much every week, his ball placement has been very precise. You know, I learned one thing in a conversation with Troy Aikman, who we both know years ago, and Troy told me, you can do everything right as a quarterback, but if you can't put the ball where you want to put it, you've got nothing. And Allen is big. He's everything you want. And now his ball placement has caught up to all those other things. And when he places the ball the way he did the other night, you think, God, this guy could be really special.
Yeah. You know, I've defended Lamar Jackson. He's 26-7 as a starter, and he's still only 23. And I said this the other day. I put up with Shaq's lousy free throw shooting because he was so powerful. Amazon Prime's content is average and expensive, but they can get anything to my house in 3 hours, so I put up with everything. And I look at Lamar, and in a freeway traffic jam, he's the motorcycle that can scoot through it. He is so unique.
Yeah.
Athletically, and he's mostly okay throwing. And I think, you know, we all harangue this constantly, but I'm like, folks, he's 26-7 as a starter. He does have, though his accuracy is hit and miss, he does at times have a really nice touch. Are we spending too much time, going over and over this he can't throw the ball stuff?
I don't think we're spending too much time on it. He is a quarterback. I mean, in an ideal world, you'd like your quarterback to be a pretty good thrower. Now, does he have to be the best thrower in the league? He does not. And obviously, there will be games like the other night. They played a bad Cowboys defense in which the run game can be absolutely dominant, and you don't need him to make great throws. Now, obviously, the touchdown to Brown was a great throw, and he's capable of those kinds of throws clearly, but he's not really a great thrower at this point, and he's got some mechanical issues that need to be worked out. We'll give him, I think you can give a lot of people mulligans this year because of the nature of the season and the fact that practice is not the same, and the off-season certainly wasn't the same. So I don't want to judge his whole career based on this season, but there's no question that he needs improvement as a passer. And that's, I don't think, put aside the one-loss record. That's one of those, has a phenomenal one-loss record, Alex Smith. We never talk about Alex Smith being a great quarterback.
Yeah.
So you got to just be careful about throwing out one-loss records.
Yeah.
So the point is, if you evaluate the player and you isolate his traits, he needs to improve as a passer.
By the way, Jalen Hurts considered a very good athlete, but Nick Saban moved off him for Tua. Will Philadelphia's offense, when you look at film, will it look different? Forget the completions, but will it be a different Different offense with Hurts than Wentz.
I'm sure they'll incorporate and integrate far more designed run game concepts. You know, when I did Hurts coming out of Oklahoma in my evaluation, and again, I'm not one of those guys that says a guy stinks or he's great. I don't do that. I try to think of all the possible variables, and I thought to myself, okay, what is he going to be in the league? Do you have to sort of structure an offense like a Lamar Jackson offense? Or over time, can you see this guy developing and maybe being like a Dak Prescott because he does have the same kind of body type? So I'm not sure, but I think early on, you're going to see a lot of design run game. Dimensions, and I also think you'll see him leave the pocket when he doesn't need to and make plays with his legs, because that's what he can do best right now.
All right. And finally, boy, coaching matters. Baker Mayfield probably played. It was the most important game of his career, and I thought he, by and large, played very well. He has cut down significantly on the mistakes,
yes.
And I know it's the play of the week. And your just thoughts overall on Baker and what you saw?
Well, I'll tell you, when you started by saying coaching matters, and you're 100% right, because what did everybody think? They thought, okay, it's a Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry game. The Browns come out, they hand the ball to Chubb, but they had studied, obviously, the Titans' defense leading up to the game, and the Titans cannot rush the quarterback, and they're not very good in the secondary. So what did Kevin Stefanski and staff do? They said, you know what, yeah, we're a running team, but this week, we can throw the football. So we're going to come out and throw it because that's the weakness of the defense we're playing. That's smart coaching. And this play actually that we're going to show, and we can show it right now, this was the play that really changed the game because the Titans had just made it 17-7, and the very next play, he hits Donovan Jones for a 75-yard touchdown. Beautiful design. Again, this is coaching. They had 3 tight ends on the field, what we call 13 personnel, 1 back and 3 tight ends. The only wide receiver on the field was Peoples-Jones, and he was split to the boundary side of the formation. And there was Breon Borders, who was matched up on him, a corner that struggled at times this year. Now, Amani Hooker's critical here. Look where he's lined up. He's the only safety, the post safety. He's away. He's on the opposite side from Peoples-Jones. So what do the Browns do? They run what we call power run action. Okay, gap scheme. The guard pulling, run action. Look at Hooker. He is at the line of scrimmage. So now, what do you have here? What's left? One-on-one on the outside. There's no safety help at all, and it's a stutter go. And this is beautifully executed by Peoples-Jones. Runs right by Borders, and this becomes pitch and catch because he's so wide open. But again, coaching, design, scheme, use of personnel, use of formation, really, really well done.
Good stuff, Greg Cosell, NFL Films, 40 years. Good talking to you, Greg.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
You bet. See, we got a Baker play. It just took a while, but we got a Baker Mayfield play. Again, I am available for speaking engagements and parades in Ohio. All you have to do is call.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health because we're fed up with the way our country has ignored public health for so long. Those days are over. And our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to your life, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-hosts Catherine and Deepti as we seek truth in health. Contact World's podcast is the voice of the people and your opportunity to improve public health and health equity. So subscribe to Contact World and tell your friends, because we all deserve the right information, not misinformation. Visit contact.world to learn more. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Patriots look to keep rolling against Aaron Donald and the NFC West leading Rams tonight at 7:30 Eastern on Fox NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
What's the line on that now? Fox bet line is 5. I'm going to bet New England. Yeah, I like dogs. Earlier this year, I fell into a trap of betting favorites. That was stupid. Don't do that. By the way, one scoop every day, mdrivestart.com. One scoop, all it takes every day. mdrivestart.com. Chocolate mousse in the morning. Fantastic. Joy with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herdline News.
This week, Brett Favre praised his former teammate, Aaron Rodgers, saying that aside from the Super Bowls, he is probably the greatest player ever.
Aside from the Super Bowls, those are sort of
Aside
important.
from the things that we all play for. Rodgers couldn't help but smile when he was asked about the comments, though.
I love Favre. He's such an interesting, unique guy as well. He shoots from the hip. So he kind of says what's on his mind all the time. It's fun to be back in touch with him and to have that friendship and that kinship. I appreciate anything that he says.
Look how happy. He's so happy.
So cute. A little bromance.
I like it.
I think it's nice because, the stories were that he wasn't very welcoming to Aaron Rodgers.
Well, first of all, if you were Brett Favre, and all of a sudden this really talented kid shows up, and by the way, he's younger and hipper than you. He's California. He's good looking. He's young and hip. You're a good old Southern boy, and he's kind of the story is, Aaron would, poke a few things in his ribs. I'm not blaming Favre for all that. Aaron probably loved poking Favre. That's his personality.
I mean, I don't think it's outside of human nature for anyone to be a little prickly in that situation. I just think it's cute that they're friends now. But aside from that, I mean, I think there are some people who believe that Aaron Rodgers is a better overall quarterback than Tom Brady. Before the Atlanta Super Bowl, we were still having the conversation who was better. Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, with all of the Super Bowls that Tom Brady had before that Super Bowl. I just feel like after that Super Bowl, we all was just kind of like, okay, he's just the best. He's the GOAT of quarterbacks.
Not the most talented.
But the greatest player of all time, I think a lot of people give that to Lawrence Taylor.
Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
And, it's different in basketball. The reason Magic, LeBron, and MJ and Kobe are so often called, greatest players and stuff is because they just have more talent. But in football, we tend to talk more about productivity.
Well, that's why the Jordan conversation has lasted for as long as it has, because he did have the productivity and the championships and the talent.
That's right. And so I think, I don't think, if you're asking me most talented, let's just change the topic to most talented quarterbacks of my life. I would say Marino 1, Elway 2, boy, Mahomes is way up there. Aaron, Favre, I wouldn't put Tom in that. So again, you're talking talent. Aikman. Aikman was a really good quarterback. But
why do we do that with Tom? Is it just because we just consider him so
no,
unathletic?
I think because we ask quarterback, for instance, Peyton Manning literally changed football. Peyton was so smart, it was like Gary Kasparov with chess. You had to put him against the computer. So I think Peyton changed the game intellectually, and it forced coaches and other teams to go, God, this guy is literally going to the line with 4 plays. So I look at quarterbacks. I think Peyton's the smartest. I think Dan Marino is one of the most gifted, talented guys. I think if you ask Troy Aikman, he would tell you. He would look at Dan Marino and go, some of Dan's throws, and I think Rodgers tends to fall in the Dan Marino class where the ball comes out of his hand faster. It's almost like if you took a big seed, and you press your fingers together and it squirted out. That's what the ball looks like.
It just looks better.
It just looks better. And I think Aaron, it's remarkable how many people think I don't like Aaron. There's things that bother me, and I think I was the first to notice some body language stuff. But in terms of talent, I think I can make an argument that Mahomes, Aaron, Marino are about as talented and Elway as anybody I've ever seen.
It's really also tough to have the who's the best football player conversation.
Without a bunch of wins.
Well, no, I'm just like, who's the best player? Like, you have defense. Like, is the best defensive player? Is the best quarterback? Like, a wide receiver is not going to play defensive end. Like, the positions are so different. Whereas in basketball, LeBron plays all positions.
Aaron Donald. The biggest gap in this league is Aaron Donald and the next best defensive
lineman. So that's
lineman.
probably the better conversation. Like,
Yeah.
Who has the biggest separation between 1 and 2?
And it would be Aaron Donald.
Position.
And
Yeah.
Reggie White in his day.
Yep.
The second best defensive lineman was not close to Reggie White.
So the Dolphins defense has been good this season, but they'll have their hands full with the Chiefs on Sunday. Brian Flores has experience facing Mahomes and the Chiefs from his time with the Patriots, and he knows this game's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I remember it was hard to stop him. It's still hard to stop. It's probably harder to stop him. Now, they've got a little bit of a killer instinct. You know, Mahomes has got it. Kelsey's got it. I wish we could have 14 defenders. That'd be nice.
Well, like Flores making a joke, which is a completely straight face. They're tough this season. Number 2 in scoring offense, number 1 in total offense, number 1 in passing offense, 16 in rushing offense. But Dolphins defense is playing really well. They have this number 2 scoring defense. They're kind of middle of the road in total defense, passing defense, and rushing defense. But they are number 2 in takeaways with 21. Only the Steelers have more.
Yeah. I mean, listen, of all the layers of offense, coaching check, quarterback play, protection, weaponry, it's just they're A in all of them, and that's very rare. They're A in all of them.
They really feel the Chiefs like a team. Yeah. Like, there's moments with the Steelers where I'm like, everything's not quite fluid yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like, I feel like the defense is there. But offensively, I still feel like there's like just some stuff that needs to be worked out. You can see that with the Ravens. You can see that with really every team. The Chiefs feel like they all got it. Like, they know each other. They know where they're supposed to be. They just feel so comfortable and fluid offensively. So they're going to be a problem. But I do think this is going to be more of a competitive game than people think, the Chiefs and Dolphins. So the Nets are reportedly on James Harden's list of teams that he would like to be traded to. The move would obviously reunite Harden and Kevin Durant, formerly of the Thunder, together. But KD isn't giving those rumors much attention. He said, don't think about James Harden at all. He doesn't play on our team.
I like that. That's actually the right answer.
It is. He's Harden has reportedly expanded his list of preferred trade destinations. In addition to the Nets and 76ers, he would be open to join the Bucks and the Heat.
Well, that's where he wants to go. That's nonsense. Milwaukee, he doesn't fit. Jimmy Butler and James Harden. Jimmy Butler would resent James Harden's game.
I think they could make it work, but the only way you're coming to the Heat is if you're buying into what's going on with the Heat. Otherwise, the Heat aren't going to do it. That's not the type of organization they are.
First of all, nightlife Harden in Miami.
Like, I mean, look, he's earned that reputation, so you can't.
Hard pass.
There's no way he hasn't earned that reputation. It's definitely something.
Yeah.
A little bit of NBA news from Woj. Paul George has signed a maximum contract extension with the Clippers that'll guarantee him as much as $226 million over the next 5 years.
Well, you better start playing better in the postseason.
That is a commitment. Clippers are all in.
They're all in. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
Thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
So, I've said this. There are certain awards in sports that I think have value. I'm not a big awards person. Like, I watch the games, I bet the games, I love data, I love mock drafts. I'm not really an award guy. And I've said this, Joey and I have both worked in like local radio and stuff. You know who can play and who can't. When the red light comes on, this little red light right here thing, it's on right now. When the red light's on, are you a player or not? Some people are terrified. Oh my God, I don't know what to say. Some people aren't. Awards are subjective, Emmys and local TV. None of that stuff ever mattered. All the best people I work with were too busy breaking stories to worry about a resume tape and winning awards. I just don't care. Sports is the same. Yeah, there's a handful are okay. But the worst award in sports is the NBA MVP. Because it's called most valuable. And I'll give you an example. This year, in the NFL, I would give it to Aaron Rodgers and then Patrick Mahomes. If they were on the open market, everybody would want them. I mean, all but like 1 or 2 teams, right? Like that's how valuable they are. Everybody would want Mahomes if he's on the market. Almost everybody would want Aaron. baseball, Mookie Betts or a Mike Trout. On the open market, if you could afford them, everybody would want them. In hockey, and I may get this name wrong, Leon Draisaitl? Boom! Everybody would want him. Heisman Trophy, Joe Burrow. If you offered him to the nation, a lot of people would want him. James Harden, in the last 4 years in the MVP, has finished third, second, first, and second. The Lakers, he wouldn't work. The Heat, I don't think it fits. Milwaukee, I don't think he fits. Golden State couldn't use him. How would you have Steph, Clay, and Harden? Where does he fit? Would you really want him to take the ball to Luka's hands? No. He wouldn't fit in Denver. They have a point center. Valuable is LeBron. LeBron is water. He's a car. You can't get anywhere without LeBron. LeBron is basic transportation. Everybody needs a car. Harden's a speedboat. Oh, it can be fun, but where do you put it? How many places can you own a speedboat? Miami? In Miami? Like, speedboats are cool. They're not valuable. They're not necessary. So this is why I've always thought this award is nonsense. Harden's a great talent, but valuable? He almost fits nowhere. You have to have a different system with him. You literally have to create an entirely different offense. He will take the ball away from other players. Jimmy Butler plays so hard on both ends. He'd play with Harden and his Olay defense. He would resent him. Jimmy Butler's whole thing is total commitment, 40 minutes both ends. So that award is, you'd have to remake your whole team for Harden. There's a lot of guys in this league. It's amazing who gets love and who doesn't. Chris Paul, all I hear is people whining about him. Everywhere he goes, he wins. All I hear is people whining about Chris Paul. He wins. I thought we cared about winning. That and betting and winning. That's all we care about. Urban Meyer. Ohio State is in. Urban Meyer is joining us next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
This is Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling, and we are doing a podcast, and it's called 9021 OMG. So why are we doing a podcast? Well, we get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happen. So they know what happened on camera, obviously, but we can tell them all the good stuff that happened off camera. Oh. Remember all those times? No, I don't remember any of it. You have an amazing memory. You remember everything about the entire 10 years that we filmed that show. And you remember absolutely nothing of the 10 years that we filmed that show. We should name that show. Beverly Hills 90210. Oh, she's so good. This is going to help you too. It's going to jog your memory because we're going to rewatch it with them. Oh, good. It's like my daily dose of ginkgo biloba. Listen to 9021 OMG on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Three-time national champ Urban Meyer, I can remember when he was coaching at Utah, and I used to cover the Oregon Ducks, and I would tell my friends, whoever this Urban Meyer guy is, he is working the Pac-12. I think he beat Cal one year, and he beat Oregon, and they were good teams with good coaches like Jeff Tedford and Mike Bellotti. And I remember telling people, I'm like, this guy, you watch these games, he is working these staffs. Urban went on to win a couple of national titles with the Gators in Florida, who were really good this year with Dan Mullen, and he won at Ohio State. And I always love this stat. He's one of 3 coaches to lead multiple schools to a title: Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, and Pop Warner. you're ever in a category with Pop Warner, you've had a great career. And Urban's now joining me live, Fox College Football. So let's start with this, Coach. Urban, I said I thought Ohio State deserved to be in. It wasn't their fault for a couple of the cancellations. The Big Ten was willing to evolve and adapt. Were you surprised the conference did adapt because they could have easily not done that?
Well, the Big Ten, they came out very rigid when the commissioner said that we would not revisit playing. They did revisit and they're playing. Then all of a sudden you have that 21-day rule for the athletes when the other conference had 10 days for the COVID people that got COVID, and then the six game rule. I think that showed great flexibility and conversation among the Big Ten conference. If there was not a head-to-head, this would be a problem. But there was a head-to-head, and they beat Indiana. So Indiana played 2 more games. I'll tell you what, Colin, all of our hearts go out to Indiana. That team was a special team. They beat Michigan State, the Wolverines, and Penn State in 3 weeks in a row. And now this would be the year they could have a chance to go compete for a championship, and they won't have it.
Yeah. Justin Fields, there's been 3 quarterbacks since I've been a sportscaster that I've said you have to pick number 1. John Elway, Andrew Luck, and Trevor Lawrence just feel different to me. Now, Justin Fields is really good, and in any other year I'd have him number 1. He'll probably be the second quarterback taken. My question is this. Beyond me watching games, tell me about Justin Fields that I don't see and don't know.
Well, I think when you start talking about franchise quarterbacks or picks, it's got to be more than just the ability to play. It's got to be, can he be a leader in the locker room? Because that will never change. That position he has to lead. What I noticed about Justin Fields, especially during his difficult season, his leadership skills are, I didn't know that. I'm not sure Ryan Day and Corey Dennis, who recruited him, do it. But he's taken over the locker room. He's a great leader. He's a great worker. So that's what I think. People see a guy that's Braxton Miller fast, Dwayne Haskins accurate, yet what they don't see is incredible leadership and character. And that's what's really important, especially if you're going to sink that kind of money and investment in a player.
Yeah. So, we talk about college football, and I've said this before. Brian Kelly has gotten Notre Dame back to a place I never thought they'd get back to. And I didn't. I said they have an academically, I think it's kind of a town, it's small, it's isolated, there's a religious overtone, and I've said this for 15 years. Like 8 wins, 9 wins, that's great for Notre Dame, and stop ripping the coaches. Brian Kelly has got them now, as you well know on the recruiting trail. That's a real football program, and I'd put him in the top 5 or 6 in the country. I want you to talk a little bit about Brian Kelly, what you know, and because I really think this year I absolutely believe Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson, Bama are the 4 best teams, and I think they can all give each other good games. Are you a little surprised? You know Notre Dame well, you used to be there, that with some of their barriers, they have become a top 4 to 5 program.
I know Brian Kelly very well, and what I've always appreciated the coaches that have won at all levels. And you're talking about Grand Valley State, Central Michigan, and then to Cincinnati, and then to Notre Dame, and he's a winner. This is not shocking that he's doing this at Notre Dame. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the country. Is Notre Dame at times a tough sell? It is. At other times, it's an actually easy sell because certain kids have grown up, and the Catholic schools, you got an instant. That's where a lot of great football is played in some Catholic high schools across America, so he's got a built-in advantage, but for the most part, you have to go out and work people. He does not have a backyard. These other programs, Ohio has Ohio, Texas has Texas, California has, UCLA and USC have California. Indiana high school football is good, but the quantity is not there, so he's a national recruiter. So I've always been a fan of Brian Kelly. I've coached against him a couple times, and I just think he's one of the best, one of the top 5 coaches in the country.
It's interesting. Your name comes up all the time, and I have said this, and I'm sure you through the grapevine you hear this eventually, but I've said this before. If there was an NFL job open, I've said this before. If I was the Jets, I'd go hire you. You'd be who I'd hire with the Jets. I've said this, USC and Texas. If they had openings, I'd be like, that's the guy I'd hire, Urban Meyer. You've had physical things you and I have discussed. Is it Bob Stoops has told me privately and publicly, I'm done coaching. And then he goes back to the XFL because there's an itch. There's nothing like game day. There's just nothing like changing lives of young people. Can you definitively say, I'm done with coaching forever? Or are there mornings you wake up on Saturday, Urban, and you want to be in that stadium?
There's more than means, Colin. You can't do something as long as I've done it that you just feel a little bit empty. I have a great spot in Fox, and I love Reggie, Matt, Brady, and Rob Stone. We have a great group. I really have absorbed that and embraced it. But to say I don't think about it, it's every day. But it'd have to be the perfect situation. It'd have to be something that I was confident that the health issues I could overcome and at least prevent. So, I don't know. At this point, I think I'm done, but I've learned a long time ago. I left a job once where I thought I really plan on being here. Then you get a phone call from a better opportunity. So, I think I'm done, but I would never say I'm never done.
Yeah. It is interesting. In college, Brian Kelly told me 2 weeks ago on the air, he goes, the one thing I like about it, he goes, unless your name is Belichick or Andy Reid, you can't control your personnel. And in college, you can control your personnel. One of the things that makes you special is you really like changing lives. It's a big deal for you. You take people, you mold them. Professional football is almost a different platform. They've had parenting, they've had coaching. Is the pro football world to you? I always thought you looked at it from afar. But as you're now out of football, how do you view the NFL coaching jobs? How do you view them? Strange, interesting, or a billionaire you wouldn't want to deal with?
I had unique experiences. I've been a part of all the NFL teams, franchises in some way. How? Because they've come through my office and looked at our players, and a lot of them drafted our players. So last year was the first time I called a good chunk of our players that are currently playing in the NFL, and I was so intrigued about why is this organization really struggling, and then why is this one, the New Orleans Saints, I think we have 5 players there right now. I was so intrigued because I've known Sean Payton for 20 years. And Mike Vrabel, what makes Mike Vrabel, such a good coach in the NFL? So I've got a little bit of a grasp on it now. I never really did. I never have time. But it always, I don't want to be so simple. It comes down to culture and leadership. And if you have control of an organization where you can build a culture, the most perfect example is Bill Belichick. He has built a culture there of excellence. Other places have not because it's been a revolving door, and really they have not put a premium on that, in my opinion. And it's a very strong opinion because I've witnessed it through my former players. So I've studied it, and I think it comes down to, I get a little tired when you say, well, the NFL, college, and, I think whether it's corporate America, whether it's a great professional organization or a great college team, alignment, culture, and leadership are essential.
By the way, that's either your office or Ohio State. Tell the people where you're at.
Yeah, Fox put the studio in, and they kind of put it behind, I noticed, I didn't even see what's back there. There's some balls from Utah, and yeah, I'm at my home in Columbus.
Okay, home in Columbus. There you go. Urban Meyer, great talking to you, Coach.
Great seeing you, Colin.
All right. College football analyst. He's been terrific. He's gone all in on it, by the way. He's one of these guys. When Urban's into something, he's into something. I tell a story years ago. I was told this, not by Urban, by somebody else. So when Urban, he'd gone to Utah and Bowling Green first, went to Utah, and then he was up. He went to Florida. But Notre Dame and Florida were both interested. And Lou Holtz may deny this, but he called Lou Holtz because he had been on Lou Holtz's staff. So Urban was the young star coach on one of Lou Holtz's staffs. And he called Lou Holtz. And he said, well, where should I go? And I don't think I've ever told Urban this, but I heard this story, is that Lou Holtz said, go to Florida. He says you can just get more players. Like, this is all about talent accumulation. At Florida, you'll have I think your recruiting will be better at Florida, and therefore you'll have more to work with at Florida. And that wasn't Lou being anti-Notre Dame. It was the reality of Notre Dame. As Lou lived through his Notre Dame experience, toward the end with Lou, he had fought with administration to get certain kids in. And so it's, but I'll tell you on Brian Kelly, it's like Urban said, there's a lot of roadblocks. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. It is cold. It is isolated. There's not much to do. Academic load is tough. There's a religious overtone. But it's also Jesuit high school football in America is wildly powerful, and that's the first place you look. So it's a little both. Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades. Weather's getting bad. They're real world proven. Walmart's the place to get them. Last 2 times longer than all other blades. Boy, our first 2 hours have flown by today. A reminder, Patriots-Rams tonight on Fox. Hour 3 next. It's the Herd.
We are back and Impact Effect Network. Hey y'all, it's Tamika D. Mallory and My Son the General.
That's me.
And Street Politicians is the podcast for the culture. We will be breaking down social and civil rights issues, pop culture, and politics on our podcast every Wednesday. We will have special guests as well with local activists to join the show discussing political issues going on in their community. Listen to Street Politicians on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
You've probably heard a lot about Portland on the news, about the tear gas and the federal agents with snatch vans and the anarchy. What you probably haven't heard is the truth, because the reality of what happened in Portland is so much stranger, so much more incredible than what the mainstream media was willing to show. I'm Robert Evans, and along with all of the other voices on my podcast, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, I was there. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Megan Gailey.
And I'm CJ Toledano, and we're the hosts of The Greatest,
a sports podcast that invites your favorite personalities on to rank and debate who and what really is the greatest.
Discuss the greatest sports beef with comedian Anthony Jeselnik.
Were you the Tanya's mom in your sister's life?
No, I was probably the Jeff Goldblum.
The greatest March Madness moments with former UCLA player and NBA Twitter king Josiah Johnson.
Look at LeBron, he makes one out every 2 shots.
Yeah.
That'll get you literally in the Hall of Fame, man.
We've even had NBA Hall of Famer Reggie Miller on to ask him what are the greatest Reggie Miller moments.
You guys are fantastic. You guys are both so funny and talented. I'm actually, you're saying that you guys are honored. I'm honored to actually be on this podcast with you too.
Reggie Miller is also my best friend.
Sure.
Listen and follow The Greatest on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Eagles Saints is featured in Sunday's Fox Super 6 contest, where players have won over $3 million. Download the free Fox Super 6 app and make your picks before kickoff Sunday for your chance to win. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games, and for top stories, scores, and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Call and give us your winner and final score for Eagles Saints.
God, I don't know what I'm going to see. I'm not going to bet that game because I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't even know what Philadelphia's offense is going to look like. I would say Saints will win by 2 touchdowns. That feels like 34-21. I have no idea I can't bet that game because I have no idea what I'm getting. By the way, the best bet of the week I can't put in Blazing 5. The best bet of the week is Carolina over Denver, but I got it at 1.5. It's now 3.5, so I wouldn't bet that game now. But when I bet it Monday, Carolina only gave up 1.5. I love that. That was my favorite. A lot of times, and I've told you this off the air, a lot of times I can't make my Blazing 5 pick my favorite bet because the best bet comes off the board Sunday, Monday morning, and it gets bet up by the wise guys. So Carolina was the best bet on the board, and now it's all 3.5 and nonsense. Greg Jennings, a decade in the NFL. He called the Rams-Cardinals game last weekend. Be calling Washington 49ers on Sunday. He joins us now live, Fox Sports NFL analyst. So Favre said yesterday, Aaron Rodgers could be the best player ever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to put you on the spot here. Because you're capable of handling this. Because you played with Favre and you played with Rodgers. You played and you practiced with both. And Favre went on, and he's like, I think Aaron's the best player ever. Tom's the most productive. Give me something with Favre that he did that you like more than Aaron, and something with Aaron that as a receiver you like more than Favre. Give me something with both.
Okay, so it's really easy for me. And people ask me this question all the time, Greg, who would you want to be your quarterback? And for me, I kind of twisted it a little bit.
Colin, and this is why when you get Brett Favre on the football field, he's just going to give his players a chance. And he's going to put the ball up there because he's more of a gunslinger. He's more of a risk taker. Doesn't mean he's not accurate. Doesn't mean he doesn't throw a great ball. He does all of those things, but he's just going to give you a chance to make a play and allow your skill set to show forth. Aaron is so precise with where he delivers the ball. He kind of eliminates the receiver's opportunity to make a play. What I mean, go up and get balls. Like, yes, he puts balls in position back shoulder, you twist and you contort your body, all of those things, but the ball is pretty much pinpoint placement. That's the one thing that I loved about Brett. You had to make a play, and he was going to come to you in the most craziest of situations when he knew he shouldn't. He was going to be that guy to do it. That's really not Aaron's deal.
Are you surprised that Favre now, there's a little bromance here? Because I said earlier, if I would have been Favre, and here I'm a Southern guy, and all of a sudden here comes California cool Aaron, a little snarky, and he's talented, so Brett can see how talented he is, and I think, oh, I can see that not being a great relationship. Are you surprised a little? They're as close as they are, at least publicly now.
I'm not surprised. I think once you remove yourself from a day-to-day situation with anybody, you have a different perspective. You still have those relationship ties, you still have those experiences, but you look at them different. You assess them differently. And I think right now, where Brett Favre is in his life and his career, and what he's doing with his life after football, and where Aaron Rodgers is in his career, he can relate to so much of what he experienced, what he was feeling when Aaron Rodgers jumped on the scene. And so you tend to gravitate to what you have a relationship with or experiences with. And so that's why I think you kind of hear this in agreements or in harmony, so to speak, when it comes to Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. They're all buddy now. And I think it's great. It's what we all really want. We want to be friends, but we want to critically critique when the time presents.
So you were there for the Favre-Aaron Rodgers transition. In Philadelphia, Wentz to Jalen Hurts. Everybody will say the nice thing publicly, but it is a little odd in the locker room, no?
It is. In this situation, it's definitely a little odd, and I think the way Jalen Hurts has been handling it has been phenomenal. And I can say the same with Carson Wentz as far as how he's handled Jalen Hurts and all the chatter. But when you're in the locker room and you just want to win, even though they love, I truly believe these guys like and they love Carson Wentz, but they like and they love what they're seeing in Jalen Hurts. Personalities, people gravitate to personalities. People gravitate to winners. Jalen Hurts is a winner. He hasn't proven anything in this league. I get that. But you want to give him a chance because guys will follow his type of leadership. He's quiet, calm, collected. You need a change of pace. It doesn't mean you don't have access to Carson Wentz. This is the beauty of having a roster. The quarterback position is one of those positions where we think, oh, you can only play one. Yes, you want to develop some type of chemistry and consistency. But when you have a guy who struggled, but you still can utilize his skill set, you can pick and choose, just like Sean Payton has done, when you insert one or the other.
By the way, so bye weeks are different. So some teams take a bye week and they're like, listen, we're not healthy. I'm going to give guys some days off. And then there have probably been times, Greg, that you had a bye week and a team's just not right. You got to tweak something. It's a really important 4 or 5 days of extra practice. I think Tampa falls into that, where it's like, okay, the talent's here. Which is not right. Go back to your career. How do you think Tampa used this bye week? What did they spend time on?
Well, they're looking at everything that worked and all that did not work. And they want to lean towards what works. What was seamless, what allowed us to execute at a high level, where everyone was involved and everyone enjoyed it. And we saw progression. That's what they're going to lean to. Excuse me, that's Tom Brady at my door right now. I'm going to have to answer that when I get done.
this is what you do during the bye week. And I think we're going to see, when you look at their schedule, their remaining schedule, they're excited because they have very winnable games. They're not just pushovers, but they're very winnable games that they can continue to build and stack the success that they need entering into the playoffs.
You know, it's funny about how matchups work. In the NFC West, the Niners just match up really well with the Rams. Their defensive personnel, they just match up. Now, the Rams match up really well with Arizona. So I didn't have a punitive opinion anti-Rams after they lost to the Niners twice. And I'm not going to beat up on Arizona because I think the Rams, Aaron Donald's a matchup problem. Jalen Ramsey can go to D-Hop and shut things down a little. I want to talk about, because you did this game last week, Kyler Murray. Young quarterbacks come into the league. They hit a wall. Most of the great ones break through it. Kyler feels like, to me, Greg, he's struggling a little bit right now. Do you see that? Is it injuries? What do your eyes tell you with Kyler right now?
So, two things. It's more than just Kyler. In my opinion, it is Kyler. When you say Kyler Murray, you're saying Cliff Kingsbury as well. Because the adjustments haven't been there. The game that I watched them and the games that I've seen, they haven't made the proper adjustments. Now, that's not solely on your quarterback. However, Kyler Murray has to understand players make plays in this league. And just because you can throw the ball with elite ability, and you have the opportunity to run the ball with elite ability, doesn't mean you need to just do one. Be special. Be what makes you different. And when you're one-on-one, even if you have a defender in your face, it's 9 times out of 10. I remember when Brett Favre told me this. He said, Greg, 80% of you or 70% of you is better than 100% of the next guy. And that's no knock on the next. Well, it is a knock on the next guy a little bit, but it's just credit to the individual. Kyler Murray is a talented individual. He has to embrace the fact that he has legs and he has shifty ability and a quickness that is unmatched.
Yep.
Use it, lean into it, and stop trying to just be a pocket passer. That is not going to cut it for a guy his size, his height, who has all these extra skill sets and tools. Use them all.
Yeah, by the way, Baltimore's going back to using Lamar more. I think that there were weeks when Baltimore wasn't using Lamar's athletic ability and they were trying to develop him into something. It's like, no, you can do that, but there are certain players that have certain skills. To your point, use it. Now let's talk about the Rams. You had their game last week. And Goff gets a lot of heat. I always feel with the Rams, when Goff is comfortable, they win. When he's uncomfortable, they don't. I think they're one of the easiest teams for me to figure out. Your thoughts about Goff? Is this what he is, Greg? Like what we're seeing, does it go beyond this, or is this sort of just what he is?
You know, I think we've seen the ceiling for Jared Goff, but we don't really know the floor. We don't know how bad it can get, and that's a little scary. What you said is spot on. When he's comfortable, great. Uncomfortable, not great. And that's problematic at that position because he's a quarterback that plays with rhythm, timing. If he gets ahead of the down, he's great. If he gets into rhythm, you get him moving out of the pocket, he's great. But he's a guy that you can scheme up too easily because he makes decisions already premeditated. And what I mean by that is when he's scanning, it doesn't mean that he doesn't go through his progressions, but once he goes 1, 2, 3, he just checks it down. He doesn't really evaluate the situation before letting that ball go, and that's where he makes a lot of his mistakes. And if you look at teams that have fast-flowing linebackers and safeties that can cover as well in the secondary, he struggles with teams like that, and the key is they got to have speed.
Yeah, boy, what a good breakdown. Greg Jennings, by the way, Greg is a world-class bodybuilder. This is true story. You can admit it. You do very well in your competitions. I asked you, when's the last time you had a meal and just didn't give a rip? Mine was this morning for breakfast. When is the last time you just said, I don't even care, deep dish pizza, here I go? Last time.
It has really been over a year where that's taken place, simply because your mindset is just so locked in on reshaping your body and staying locked in and dialed into nutrition. You don't want to ever go too far off the beaten path. But after shows, I mean, even after a competition, I'm a sushi guy. That's kind of my go-to. Yeah, man, I know my kids get on me all the time. Daddy, you eat the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, but the results are what matter.
Yeah, I lost my abs years ago. Nobody found them. Greg Jennings, great talking to you, buddy. Nice work.
Appreciate it, Colin.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend the other day. He goes, I've never had deep dish pizza. And I'm like, go get lost in it for a weekend in Chicago. Yeah,
it's kind of like just sauce and cheese, which
Yeah.
I'm not against.
Yeah, I'm a thin crust. I love Chicago as a city, but I'm a thin crust guy.
Yeah, me too.
I'll get 2 pieces of thin crust, fold them up, boom. Very New York. Like New York, you just go to a place, you come out in the street.
Yeah, I'm more of a New York pizza.
You fold it up and boom, knock it out of the park. New York pizza's great.
Yeah, I love Chicago though.
Great.
Street Politicians is a show for the people. I am Tamika D. Mallory, the one who is always right.
And I'm my son, the one who is never wrong.
And catch us every Wednesday on the Black Effect Network, breaking down social and civil rights issues, pop culture, and politics in hopes of pushing our culture forward to make the world a better place for generations to come. But that's not all. We will also have special guests to add their thoughts on the topics, as well as break down different political issues with local activists in their community.
We might not always agree, we might not always be right, we're not going to always be wrong. We're going to always be okay.
If you like to be informed and to expand your thoughts, then listen to Street Politicians on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
In the summer and autumn of 2020, the city of Portland, Oregon became the center of a vast media blitz. Thousands of viral videos showing marching federal agents and police officers tear gas, black-clad anarchists and fires went viral all over the internet. What didn't go viral was the truth, because the story of Portland's Black Lives Matter movement and of the Portland protests of 2020 is so much stranger than I think the mainstream media would ever be willing to cover. I was there, and more importantly, the people that I talked to for my new show, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, were there. Through their experiences, you'll learn the truth, both about Portland and about what's coming for the rest of the United States in the next few years. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Oh, by the way, do you own or rent a home? You can bundle your insurance now. It's with Geico. Get a quote, see how much you could save. It's very easy. Geico.com. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, the Bruce Arians-Tom Brady dynamic in Tampa has been a little bit of a talking point since Tom got there, and it seemed like a little bit of a calling out, and some shots exchanged, maybe, who knows, but Arians says he is enjoying working with one of the best to ever play the game.
I mean, it's been fantastic from day one, getting him here, watching him prepare and help young players get better. He's a joy to coach, and he's a fantastic competitor. And I love that about him. And he's been there and done it, and he's helped so many of our guys who haven't believe that they can, and that's a huge part of it. And couldn't ask any more out of him.
Well, that was nice.
That was certainly a nice thing to say. Boy, between Favre talking about Rodgers and Brucey, it's a competition Wednesday and be a good guy Thursday.
Maybe it's like the holidays. Everyone's trying to be a little nicer.
That would be. I'd like to see a lot more nice.
You should be nicer.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you never know somebody else's travels. Be nice to people. You just don't know what their life's like.
You should be nice to people. Well, the Bucs are remaining schedules: the Vikings at the Falcons, at the Lions, and then the Falcons again.
I actually, the Tampa Bay, Minnesota is one of my Blazing 5 picks.
And we get a little preview?
No. And by the way, I also didn't give I didn't give my theory on New England.
You told me in the break.
And what did you think of it?
It's not terrible.
It's kind of fascinating.
It is.
Right.
It is. There's some meat there.
Okay.
So the Cowboys will once again have to decide what to do with Dak Prescott this offseason. The organization has said they want Dak in their future, but their division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles, have a little situation on their hands with Carson probably swayed the Dallas Cowboys.
Getting scared of that big contract.
Seeing what's happening with Philly. Stephen Jones is denying that the Eagles situation will influence their decision and is doubling down on Dak as their quarterback.
When something's not working out and you have big numbers on a contract that you're committed to, it can certainly affect your football team for a couple of years. But, that's the business we're in. That's why you want to be right when you sign a player. We're not nervous to sign Dak. I think his makeup is all the right things. He's an amazing man off the field. He's a great leader in our locker room. He's a great player, and that's why we wanted to sign him long term.
Dak and Carson are obviously going to be compared throughout their career.
Well, there's some similarities, but Dak had been incredibly healthy. There's a difference. Michael Jordan once broke his toe or foot. Dak is healthy. He had one injury. Carson Wentz is reckless and more unhealthy. So
Dak is definitely he's always available.
Yeah, John Stockton had a year he broke his leg, but John Stockton was there every night.
There's a 100% chance you're going to get injured in the NFL. We know that. That's just
Brady
going
missed
to
a year.
happen. Yes.
Dak's going to miss a year. But I never think of Dak as a physical liability.
No, and I do think that Dak will end up with the Cowboys next year. I just think that the Cowboys messed this up. They messed up their opportunity to sign him early, which is what they should have done. They signed Zeke Elliott instead. And remember, Zeke held their feet to the fire. Remember, he was in Cabo, and there was a whole situation with his contract. So he worked for his contract. It's not that Zeke didn't deserve to get paid, but this is a contract they should have had done first. This is a position, obviously, that you needed to lock up.
Yeah.
And now they're in a situation where they have to make it work. Now, Dak may be more open to a more team-friendly situation coming off of this injury because he bet on himself this year, but I don't think that the situations are similar. Now, I don't know how the rest of the circumstances in Philadelphia are going to play out because, we're all going to be watching this weekend to see how Jalen Hurts does, and if he does play well.
Goulet, do the Cowboys just have your regular 7 picks? What do the Cowboys have for draft pick? What the Dallas Cowboys, here's the best case scenario for Dallas. They got like the 5th pick right now. They trade down 7 or 8 or 9 spots, and somebody really has something they want, and they can get another 2nd round pick, say. And Dallas hits it out of the park with an interior defensive lineman in the 1st round, a cornerback in the 2nd round, and like an edge rusher in the 3rd round. Their first 3 picks are defense. Then all of a sudden next year, it's like we have 3 really good starting defensive players. Then your issue is offensive line. So it's not. I don't think Dallas has a quick fix. I do think if they trade down and they need a corner. Their linebackers, when healthy, are fine. DeMarcus Ware said it yesterday. Dallas is not an overnight rebuild. They got too many contracts that are problematic. So to me, what they need to do is trade down, and they have to get multiple picks and get cheaper on defense because Dak's going to make $34 million a year, and you're just in the cap's coming down.
And that's their fault.
Yeah, and totally their fault.
And Dak deserves that money. Their offensive line is an issue, and I do not see them taking a quarterback at that spot. I would be very surprised. Finally, the Bears passed on Deshaun Watson in 2017 draft in favor of Mitchell Trubisky. Watson will face Chicago for the first time in his career on Sunday, but he's not using that to fuel him. He said he gets no motivation from playing a team that passed on him, and he has nothing against the Bears organization. Obviously, I think the Bears would like that pick back, but looking at their career so far, if you compare the two, obviously Deshaun has been with an organization that's been a little dysfunctional in Houston, so the win-loss record is really kind of, you throw that out the window, but the obvious numbers that stick out are the touchdown-interception ratio and the passer rating.
One is a spectacular playmaker, and the other is a guy that struggles throwing the football. The gap here, this just shows you sometimes winning and losing does not define it.
It does not define.
They almost have the same
talent.
Yeah, and even the completion percentage is close, but the real difference here is one guy's a touchdown maker and one guy's a liability. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Joy of the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
I tell you, my theory on the Patriots, Goulet, set up some goofy Twitter poll. No, that wouldn't do it. I'm trying to figure out a way to get... I don't take phone calls anymore.
Put the tweet out.
Explain...
And then read the responses.
Yeah, that's how I'll do it. Well, it was so much easier for you than me. All right, Soup and Sweater. We play this game. Once in a while, Soup and Sweater rankings on the NFL. I think it's actually a very, very, very good NFL weekend that starts tonight with a lot of really important and fascinating games.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
You already know that the challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of the challenge. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Keep everybody on your gift list cozy with Tommy John pajamas. Underwear, loungewear, $20 off site-wide. TommyJohn.com/herd. Go to their site for details. So it is a second or third or fourth best. It's a top 5 NFL weekend in terms starting tonight in terms of quality of games. And there's a handful that get games, obviously. What the NFL does generally is you get later in the year, you've got more, divisional rivals, and you also have, elimination games. So it's a very, very good weekend. So Joy and I are going to play 0 to 5. 0 bowls of soup means it's unwatchable. 5 bowls of soup means you're sitting down for 4 hours watching every play of the game. It's our soup and sweater game. Here we go.
How many soups for Patriots-Rams tonight on Fox?
So it could easily be a low soup game because the Rams give up the fewest big plays and the Patriots have nobody who could create a big play, meaning it's going to be a lot of 4-yard game, right? I'm going to say 3 bowls of soup. So because I think Belichick and McVay, that's captivating. I think it is a must win for the Rams in their division. But if the Patriots win, it's a fascinating turn of events. Who does Kansas City not want to face in the playoffs? Like Belichick. They'd be the lowest seed to get in. So the Rams, Rams are 33-0 when they lead at halftime. So if they're up big at halftime, it's over. So that's why you can't give it more than that. But I do think there's intrigue here to watch.
How many soups for Chiefs at Dolphins?
So this is a contrast of styles. This is a big play, riskier offense in Kansas City against Tua and the Dolphins. He's yet to throw an interception. So I'll give it 4 bowls of soup because it's a contrast of styles. One of the smartest offensive guys in league history, Andy Reid, and one of the fledgling defensive head coaching stars in Brian Flores. Again, safe, no turnover offense is why you can't give it 5 bowls. But I think this game has a chance to be close. And, Kansas City's got stuff wrapped up. What if they go down to Miami, get a little loosey-goosey, potential upset here?
Dolphins have a lot of takeaways, too. How many soups for Cardinals at Giants?
This is a shocking number. I'm going to give this 4 bowls of soup. I'm fascinated. Giants are an underdog. So Vegas is telling you Arizona matches up well. Why? Because Arizona's got a very mobile quarterback. And as Greg Jennings just said, they're going to turn Kyler Murray loose this week. The second thing is the Giants are on a 4-game losing streak. But the Cardinals have allowed 30-plus points in games. So Giants are going to score. You're going to get to see Daniel Jones and some points. My guess is this game's got a little shootout written all over it. Remember, the Giants give quarterback can't move trouble. They gave Jared Goff a lot of trouble. I think you're going to see more scoring than people think. I think if the Giants win this game, we wake up on Monday morning and we see the Giants off a Seahawks win as a completely different opponent in the playoffs, as a legitimate nightmare to face for a Green Bay, for a New Orleans, for a Rams.
It's going to be bad for the Cardinals, too. How many soups are you giving Vikings at Bucks?
I think this is a 4 bowl of soup game. It's strength on strength. Dalvin Cook against the best run defense in the NFL. I think there's massive urgency for Tom Brady. If Tampa comes out and is sluggish, off kilter, we got a problem, because this is where the greats in these bye weeks, generally Brady off byes, he's had 18, is 14-4. He has been a great player off a bye. Dalvin Cook has to run. This also has potential shootout. This could end up being the best game of the weekend. We've seen Minnesota go over the top on you. Kirk Cousins not the problem right now. His passer rating, top 3 in the league over the last 6 weeks. So this has a chance to be a 36-30 game.
How many soups for Jets at Seahawks?
This is a 1 bowl of soup game. First of all, 2 struggling offenses. You have an offensive line that's struggling with the Jets, and a pass rush for Seattle, which is suddenly forceful, with Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap. Russ only has 4 TD passes in 4 games. So what it is, 2 bad offensive lines and 2 offenses struggling. The only reason to watch this is if you're a Seahawks fan and a Russell fan. But this is going to be, regardless of what happens, this is going to be ugly offensive line play and quarterbacks running for their life.
How many soups for Saints at Eagles?
Similarly, I'll give this 2 simply because the Jalen Hurts factor. I just want to see what he looks like. I want to see what anytime one of the first or second round quarterback makes a debut, I do think Greg Cosell talked about it earlier. If you look at what Jalen Hurts does well, I think there's going to be a little Kyler Murray. They're going to move him out, roll the pocket. They're going to experiment. And by the way, what if Philadelphia wins? Don't be crazy here. We just had Colt McCoy beat the Seahawks. We've seen the Raiders go to Arrowhead and beat Kansas City. This is going to be the talk of the weekend. Our lead story Monday is Jalen Hurts beats the Saints. We're going to be like, uh-oh. So that could make a that could be Doug Peterson issue, Wentz issue. So I'll get that 2 bowls of soup.
How about Steelers at Bills?
Best game of the weekend, 5 bowls of soup. Pittsburgh hates me. I think Buffalo has a chance to blow them out. I think Pittsburgh now can't run. So you're going to get Big Ben against the kid that plays like Big Ben 12 years ago. So Pittsburgh throws it 45 to 50 times. They can't run. Josh Allen is Big Ben. Big, strong, mobile. I also think the defenses aren't as good. I mean, too many injuries for Pittsburgh's defense, so Buffalo's going to put points up. Pittsburgh knows that and is going to have to be aggressive and throw the ball downfield themselves. So I think you're going to have a shootout, wildly entertaining game.
Ravens at Browns. How many soups?
4 bowls of soup. So Cleveland played its best game in a decade. What did we say about 4 days ago? Can you do it again? Okay, so like this isn't college football. After you play the Titans, you don't get Panera Bread State. You get a tougher team the following week. The NFL is not about winning. It's how you handle winning. Everybody handles losing the same. They get focused and play hard. So biggest win for Cleveland in 10 years. Oh, wait. We play a better team now. So this is one of my Blazing 5 picks as well. And Lamar Jackson against Baker Mayfield, same draft class. Very interesting.
This is a very big game.
New streaming service. It's called Discovery Plus. It'll be available next year. A lot of your favorite brands like the Food Network and HGTV. And they have some exclusive originals as well. So that is Discovery Plus. How about Jim Harbaugh, Albert Breer? Jim Harbaugh, he said Jim Harbaugh earlier today. Jets and Jim Harbaugh Bears. That second one's really interesting.
You like him to the Bears?
I don't know if I like him. I like Matt Nagy. I just think Harbaugh feels like a Bears head coach. He's kind of khaki, tough, outspoken. There's a little Ditka there.
I'm just interested in who the Jets are going to bring in.
I would go get Lincoln Riley. I'd say, listen, Big 12 or the NFL, here's $10 million. I would go get Lincoln Riley. Urban doesn't want to do it. I think I'd get Lincoln Riley, or I'd get Brian Kelly. I'd give an offensive coach, and here we go. That's what I would do. What do I know? Albert Breer, Greg Cosell, Urban Meyer, and Greg Jennings all stop by today. This is one of the fastest shows. Usually means it's a good show. So we'll, for Joey and John, we'll see you tomorrow. Be safe. During this holiday season, it's the Herd.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Suri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP, you. You're the star of your life, so own it. Join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha. I'm so excited to be bringing you my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies. You may know me from my party jams like We Are Who We Are and TikTok, but it's my curiosity for the unexpected. Unexplainable, the mystical, the magical, that drives these conversations with exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.